Hi, and welcome to episode 4 of the Final Whistle League of Ireland podcast. I'm joined once again by Dean Zambra. Dean, you're very welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Breifne. It's good to be back on.
I almost introduced you as Dean Zambra, captain of the league leaders Longford Town, which we didn't know about when we kind of were planning out this week's schedule, but we've been greeted with that lovely occurrence this week. You must be absolutely flying after the weekend's results.
Yeah, obviously delighted to get off to a win on the first game, first night. We planned all week, or we've been working hard all pre-season, so delighted to get the rewards at the end of the night, and not getting carried away at all. It's 3 points, and long way to go. So happy with the 3 points, and moving on to Bows now.
That's kind of why I did say it, because I realized that it is very, very early stages.
Yeah.
Nobody's looking at a league table yet, but the truth is that you are top of the league. Let's talk about your game first when we're looking back over the weekend's action, because I suppose it is the surprise of the weekend. Most people would have tipped you. Most of the predictions I saw had you, if not 10th, definitely no higher than 9th in any kind of predictions from anywhere across the league. Nobody would have given you hope of winning that game on Saturday evening, and yet from the off you took the game to Derry. Tell me about what it was like. I suppose, what was the build-up in the camp? Are you surprised by the result?
No, it doesn't surprise us. I think like I said, we had worked on it, worked on a game plan, worked in pre-season about what we wanted to do and how we wanted to approach the season in general, but also the first game with Derry. So it didn't come as a surprise. I think we knew we could get the result if we put in the effort and put in the work rate. And we done really well. Could have scored a couple more goals. There was a couple of patches in the game where Derry were in the ascendancy, but we held on and we defended well. Centre halves in particular were very good. A lot of headed clearances. So I thought we were fairly solid throughout and looked creative and could have scored more goals. So I thought we were worth the 3 points in the end.
Do you think Derry might have been a little bit guilty maybe of reading too much into the expectations coming into the game and thinking they might pick up 3 easy points?
I'm not too sure. I'd say Decky probably would have liked a little bit more out of the lads, but you always, first game of the season, you just don't know how it's going to translate. It's a difficult trip for Derry to even come down to Longford, so. I'm sure he'll right the ship there pretty quickly. If not next week, then at some point during the season. So, we just focused on ourselves. We done our work, and from Derry's perspective, I think they'll look for a little bit more. But you can definitely see they've got good players, and they're not far off. And maybe a break of a ball, or we don't get the early goal, that could have been a totally different game. So we are delighted that it went their way, but I don't think Derry are going to be far off once they get their feet under them in the new season.
Yeah, but that's probably underselling your achievement on the night as well, because I don't think it was just a case of getting an early goal and then backs to the wall. You did play, you did create chances, and when you got the second opportunity, you did take it very well. So in terms of, it wasn't a smash and grab, is what I'm trying to say. Effectively, you would deserved the 2-0 victory on the night.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought kind of the majority of the game we were in the ascendancy, and like you said, the chances that were created in the game more so were for ourselves. I think Derry had quite a number of set pieces, and towards the end we're putting on a bit of pressure. But as I mentioned earlier, our defensive line, the goalkeepers in particular, are very good and stout at that point, and we didn't really give anything away. And as I said, felt we were dangerous throughout as well. So any of the good creative chances seemed to come from us. So I thought we were good value for the 3 points.
For all the talk of new arrivals over the last couple of weeks, it had a very familiar Longford Town feel to it. Yourself, Lee Stacey, Dylan Grimes, and many, many more players that would have featured in the first division over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, well, I think Dara laid that out, that he believed in the group that was in the first division. He signed most of us back, and he added 1 or 2 in. Aaron O'Driscoll played at centre half, his first competitive game for us, and done really, really well. But as he's mentioned, as Dara's mentioned before, and we'll probably see throughout the season, everyone will have a role to play. There'll be different games for different players, and he might have went with some lads that he trusted or had been around more for the first game in particular. But again, we all got to keep pushing each other, and we've got another difficult one coming up with Bows this weekend.
And of course, we talk about teams coming up from the first division and keeping faith with the players that got them there. Drogheda signed back a large chunk of their squad that won that division last year. They, on Friday night, were in action. They kicked off the whole league campaign, and they got a 1-0 victory over Waterford. They left it very late. I don't know if you caught the game at all. Bit fortuitous with the goal, but probably on the balance of play did deserve to win the game. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they did shade it just about on the night. I think Drogheda gave exactly what you'd expect from Tim Clancy's team. Very similar to their first division performances, like a lot of energy, a lot of heart. Got the ball forward, getting a lot of crosses in, trying to put the defensive line of Waterford under pressure. And it was probably that pressure that kind of wore it down in the end, and they got the goal. Obviously, it was a come shot across the box, and it was deflected in, unfortunately, by the defender. But that's the type of team Drogheda are. It's an all-go type of performance, a lot of energy, small pitch up there as well, so they cover the ground. They're always at you and just chip and chip and chip. And like you said, probably just shaded it. You know, it was a decent enough game for the first game of the season, and just about shaded it. Yeah, if it was a draw, I don't think either of them would have complained too much, but Tim would be happy that they dug it out in the end.
Yeah, and of course, in terms of Friday night, obviously Shamrock Rovers and St. Pat's, probably the main game of the weekend coming into it. A bit of a damp squib for huge parts of this game, I thought. I didn't think really either team got into the first half at all. And they both left it quite late. But when they left it late, boy, did they make it entertaining for that last 5 or 6 minutes, maybe the last 2 or 3 minutes of the 90 and a bit extra time. I didn't see any of that coming, and it was just... It really got the hair on the back of the neck standing when they both went at each other for the last 5 or 6 minutes of that game. It was like a heavyweight, knowing they're going to lose on points and just saying, okay, I got to knock them out. And they both went at it. And I just loved the last 5-10 minutes of that game.
Yeah, like you said, maybe play it at like a preseason level a little bit, or a preseason kind of tempo for large parts. But it's also the first game, so like people are feeling each other out, even tactically. You know, St. Pat's looked really well organised, really fit. Rovers, obviously the champions, up to them. They're at home. The onus is on them to press a little bit more. Like, both teams probably kind of going towards a draw, and then out of nowhere, like you said, exploded. Robbie Benson's cross deflected in, obviously, and then straight away, kind of Rovers come right back at them. And as you said, the 5 or 6 minutes in that period was really good and really high tempo. And the cross and the header for Shamrock Rovers equaliser from Aaron Green was brilliant. Brilliant header. He's jumped out of nowhere. Cristiano Ronaldo, like the way he's leapt up there and headed into the corner, and actually beat the Pats keeper who was brilliant on the night as well in his first game. Young Czech boy, done really well for Pats. Yeah. And you know, that was probably all that was going to beat him, a brilliant header or a brilliant shot or something into the corner that he couldn't get to, you know.
Yeah, me for the weekend, definitely on Friday night anyway, he was probably my player of the night. I thought he was excellent. And that's without saying Pats weren't outclassed by Rovers, I thought, on Friday night. Rovers probably shaded it if I had to pick an eventual winner. But the way they responded to that late goal was just something else. But I thought that guy, Jaros, I think is his name, in goals for Pats, I think he's just a class above what we've seen from some of the teams in the last couple of years. And I think he could be the difference between Pats having a successful European push and not. And I know he's on loan for the season, and he could be a huge addition to Pats this year. I think he's going to be the find in terms of the games coming in. Let's move on to Saturday night. We've already touched on your own game. Has put you top of the table, as you mentioned, on goal difference. From the two most unlikely bedfellows at the top of the table, Finn Harps and, of course, Drogheda, who won on Friday night. But Harps, they hosted Bohemians in Ballybuffet. You obviously were playing at the time. Have you had a chance to look back at the game on Watch LOI?
Yeah, seeing most of the game back. Obviously, we talked to Stephen Fowler a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about wanting to make it a fortress at home up there, and that was always going to be a difficult game for both. You know, first game of the season to go up to Ballybuffet, and again, I think parts of it both done quite well, and parts Finn Harps done. It was probably again a nip and tuck game, not a huge amount in it, and I think Keith will just be a little bit disappointed with the error that led to the goal. You know, and if it had been a point that they took away from there, they might not have been too disappointed with it being the first game of the season, but. This division, you make errors and they get punished, you know. So they were beaten by basically the error on the night, and Ollie would be delighted. Finn Harps would be absolutely delighted to kick off the season with 3 points.
Yeah, they won last year, I think, on the opening day against Sligo, and then struggled from there on in for a while until they picked up towards the end of the year. So we'll be interested to see if they can really build on that. I think they're stronger this year than they were last year. I think Bows are probably not quite at the level they were at last year yet. I think when those players that they have brought in start to click, I think they may do damage in that division. But I think a great game, and I actually really enjoyed it. I was kind of flicking. I had 3 games on the one screen, trying to flick between them on Saturday evening, and it was tough. That final third game on the Saturday evening was obviously the trip from the FAI Cup winners Dundalk made the journey to Sligo. It hasn't been a happy hunting ground for them over the last couple of seasons. They've lost there in last season and the season before. And they nearly lost last night again. I don't know if you caught the way the game ended. I love this game. This was my favorite game of the weekend in terms of end-to-end chances, mistakes, goals. It had almost everything bar a brawl, which obviously we don't want to see, but it had everything. It was just one of those games that you kind of would absolutely love to have been in the showgrounds for.
Yeah, and there was good quality in the game as well, so Liam Buckley's teams always play that kind of style, and you're expecting it from him. He's obviously brought in a couple of players as well to bolster that quality this year, so no surprise there. Like you said, they've kind of been a thorn in the side for Dundalk as well, so I don't think anyone was surprised again that it was a difficult game. We spoke as well about Dundalk and bringing in a lot of new players. Could they gel them together quickly? We've obviously seen a little bit of hullabaloo there about the manager situation as well. So we're not entirely sure what we were going to get from Dundalk. But, they looked okay. They looked okay in patches. But I think Sligo shaded it again. And our friend Alan Keane was adamant that they should have won it. I seen him tweeting out after the game. But yeah, they really done well in the game. And probably, if that goal stands, they run out winners.
I looked at it earlier today, and I just had a quick look back over it, and I paused it, and I truly believe he was onside. He came from behind the play and stroked into the back of the net. I think it's just a mistake from the linesman. It happens. I do think on the balance of a season, it'll make little to no difference. I think if you look back at, even if you look back at encounters between Sligo and Dundalk last season, for example, I think there was definitely decisions that went in Sligo's favour that probably change the game in their favor, and I think they do balance each other out. It's really hard to take on the day, though, and I can only imagine how I rate Liam Buckley and John Russell and the whole Sligo crew down there. I know they're very passionate down the showgrounds, and I'd say there was a few choice words said at various stages. In terms of that game, though, I was very impressed with Johnny Kenny, and I know we've spoken about him. I don't want to big him up. He's only 17. He's only a youngster, but he made some impact, and it was he created that opportunity for David Cawley to cross for that chance at the end of the game. But there's a really good group of youngsters coming through that academy in Sligo now.
Yeah, they look really, really bright, and I think something that I'm noticing, like whether it's social media or other forms, with word of mouth getting around that this is a good player and really, really exciting player, and people seem to be. I know they can't come into the grounds, but it's that kind of feeling that people want to kind of come and see, that way. So I think that's basically where they're at with these young players. That there's an expectancy or an excitement around them, and whenever a young player comes through the academy into the first team at whatever level of football it is, there's always that kind of excitement from the fans because it's kind of deemed one of your own, or possibly is a player that people know or from the local area. We've got it ourselves with Derry and obviously a Longford like that. There's a vested interest in the people and the town and the fans, because this is a player that has been there as a fan, come up through the academy, come up through all the different ranks, and is now a first team player. So again, Sligo have a little bit of that with some of these young players, and Sligo always been a great catchment area for football. So it looks like it's going to continue because there's some very, very bright prospects, and like you said, don't want to get too carried away with just Johnny, but they look really good. They look really bright.
A bright future for the Bit of Red down in Sligo. But I think as we've been seeing these talents coming up from all the clubs through the National League, I think we're going to find in time that the National League underage structures are really going to increase the quality of players throughout all the clubs at National League level. Anyway, that's our review of last week's games complete. We might have a chat with a couple of our guests before we take a look maybe at the fixtures at the end of the show. We're going to be chatting to Bray Wanderers' Gary Shaw later in the show, and Tom Murphy of Wexford, their goalkeeper from last season, is going to be talking about how their pre-season has gone and how his own struggle and fight to keep that number 1 shirt from marauders who are coming into Wexford and trying to take it off his back. We'll be talking about that in the show later on. But first, we're going to go down to the Treaty City and have a chat with their manager, Tommy Barrett. Of course, there are a new side in the First Division this year, a new side in the league in the shape of Treaty United. And we're joined by their first team manager, Tommy Barrett. Now, Tommy, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thanks, Breifne. Thank you. Thanks. How are you doing?
Hey, Tommy, how are you?
Tommy,
Nice.
Welcome to the league. Not that you've not been here before, but welcome to the league as the manager at Treaty United. What's your your thoughts and hopes for the next 12 months as the coach of the team?
Yeah, look, obviously just to compete in every game and see where it takes us. I know people are sick of hearing the old cliche, take it game by game, but I suppose there's not much else we can do, from a starting point. I've been asked that question around expectations by nearly everybody now at this stage, the last 4 or 5 weeks. And I suppose to explain the cliche probably is the way to go about it, really. I don't believe in setting goals anymore. I used to in the past, but I think, I actually came up with a conversation with my wife. Actually, she was saying, like, you're setting limits, and she's probably right. And if you're limiting yourself, like if we're happy with winning 4 or 5 games, that sets us on a negative straight away. So, we're not going to set limits, and we're going to take it game by game, I suppose, is definitely the way we're going to look at it,
Yeah, Tommy, just how quickly did you have to assemble this squad? Were you able to kind of feel out a group of lads before you kind of got the licence, or was this all a quick push since the licence came down kind of a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, we were hearing soundings that we were going to get the licence, that we might get it, we had a good possibility of getting it, but you couldn't contact junior players, Dean. So
right,
with the budget we were going to have, it was going to be an amateur budget. So I was kind of in touch with a few of the ex-Galway lads, because a lot of the other lads were snapped up. So like Jack Lynch and Mark Ludden and a couple of other lads up in Galway, Joe Collins and Conor Melody, and there was a few more actually. Enda Curran I was chatting to as well a bit, but I was talking to a few lads before that as well, like obviously like Will Fitz, the Limerick based lads, and Killian Bruder and that, but they all had got clubs at that stage. So and it was a bit mental, Dean, to be honest. It wasn't nice. It wasn't great, because you're like, those lads are ringing you, will there be a team? And they're saying, will we hang on because it's locally based? And I'm like, no, lads, you have to look after yourself. You have to sign with a club, so the lads have to go to Derry and Cove and Harps and that. And obviously I'm not going to stop them, because I couldn't, because we weren't sure. And then I think on the 22nd, I couldn't speak to junior players, because you can't speak to. Again, it would have been hypothetical, and I suppose it's not the right thing to do anyway. And then you're only causing friction with junior clubs down here, and you don't want to be doing that either. So yeah, it was messy, and it was like a 2-day job getting the team together. And look, it shouldn't happen, but I think I spoke about it already. Look, it has happened now, and we have to move on.
Speaking of 2-day jobs, Tommy, I suppose our paths crossed a couple of years ago. There was obviously discussions about the future of Limerick. See, you were the manager at the time, and I was part of a group coming in trying to help the club. It didn't work out from our point of view, but we kind of I thought we got on pretty well for the couple of days we were there together. We had some really, really good in-depth conversations about the future of the club. Can you tell us a bit more about, I suppose, the whole origin of Treaty? Because what you've done is effectively what we would have chatted about and would have been, I suppose, the plan that you've had for a long time about the future of senior football in the whole Midwest region and in Limerick City in particular.
Yeah, look, and I think that's the thing. It's not to get, it's to get it, and we keep using that word, sustainable and stability. Those words, and I think that has to happen with this this club, because Limerick football, Limerick senior football has been, let's be honest about it, it hasn't been great for as far as I can remember. Like, I'm 42, going on 42 this year, and like as long as I can remember, we were 20 years in the first division. When we got up, big budgets got us up. In both 2012 and 16, and that's no disrespect to the managers or anything like that, or the people involved in the club, but you know, they were big budgets, and you know, that's what got us up essentially. And then you couldn't afford to stay in the Premier League, and we went back down fairly quick again, you know. So I think we have to, you know, look, people won't like me saying this, but like the players and the players are in Dublin and the surrounding areas, and we can see that, you know, because of the population base and because they have put, you know, built good clubs early on, like the likes of St. Kevin's and Joseph's Boys and all those teams. And outside of that, it's Cork and Galway and Waterford have improved immensely in the last few years as well. And you've seen that, and you see that at the top of the tree as well in international football, senior internationals. We haven't had a senior international from Limerick in the last 40 years. You know, Johnny Walsh is the last one 40 years ago. You know, and for a sporting city and a city perceived as a soccer city, as a football city, and a football county, we haven't got that. So that shows to me that there's problems and there's issues. And you know, we participate quite well in a lot in football, but you know, we haven't got that elite to the elite level. And I don't use that word lightly, because you know, it's been bandied about a bit. All right, that elite level, but certainly professional players, we haven't produced them. You know, even around the league the last few years, we're getting a few now. In fairness, since the League of Ireland Underage came in, we have lads playing, as we said, in Harps, Pats, you know, Derry and the likes of that, and a few lads in Galway now. And before that, there wasn't too many players from this region playing in the league. You know, you could name them on one hand in the last 15, 20 years. You know, Bobby Ryan is a prime example. Barry Ryan, obviously, is from Ennis. Would have played, you know, obviously we cover Clare as well, but there is definitely, we need to look at the bigger picture down here, and you know, there is problems there because we're not producing players, and you know, I got hammered for that when I said it a couple of years ago, because we're so successful in junior and that, but at the end of the day, that's junior soccer, and that points to a bigger problem throughout the country. I think, you know, we're very parochial in our thinking, I think, still in this country, and like even the likes with the Shamrock Rovers B1, and I know people would disagree with me with when I say that I think they should have been left in because they were better fresh air last year, and it's a next level because we don't have an underage system in this country. For the lads, the 19s to progress onto 21s, why not? They're playing against men and they're producing players. I know people might say it's unfair because it's Rovers, but that's the standard we have to get to. You know, if we haven't got a pyramid system, these players have to play somewhere. You know, as far as I think anyway, I think that we need to get more professionalized and we need to create that industry. And if we keep doing the same thing over and over, it's just madness. You know, that's my rant on that one.
Sorry, Tommy, you just touched on the obviously ups and downs of football in Limerick, and I'm just looking at the women's team that was set up last year, and even some of the social media stuff, the kit deal with Umbro. I actually think it's very impressive what Treaty have done, the membership that the club have brought forward. Do you actually think the platform is there for, you know, the improvements to come about that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think it is, Dean. I think, you know, we need to get there's no real I think we need to get the off the field stuff right first. You know, like you mentioned there, the membership, we need to get our own ground. You know, the Markets Field isn't our own, but we certainly need, you know, to get a better partnership and a better deal there where, you know, we're anchor tenants and that it's good for us as well, and it's good for the whole city and the whole region. And we have to build up partnerships maybe with colleges and universities, or develop our own training facility. We don't have a football specific training facility in this region. And I think that's a big issue as well, you know. So like the costs of that alone and costs of running the club are very, very high. And you know yourself, if the money is going into those things, it's not going into, you know, where it should be going, where it's going to pay for top class coaches and top class academy and essentially top class players, you know. So that's where we need to get it right first, and that might take a number of years, Dean, you know. But yeah. I think this group are going to do that. Like, look, I'm not going to be well, I'm not saying I'm not going to put limits, as we said earlier, but it's unlikely that, you know, I suppose I'll put it this way: I'd rather see the club sustainable in the next 4 to 5, 6, 7 years than going up and going straight back down again. You know.
Yeah.
You talked about some of the facilities that you're missing in the region, Tommy, but there are other opportunities within the I suppose the Limerick region. You've got LIT, you've got UL in terms of actual training facilities. You have, for some reason, and one of the legacies, to be fair to the people involved with Limerick FC, one of the legacies that took me by surprise during that period 2 years ago was the number of highly qualified youth coaches in the region. It seemed to be kind of a trade-off where people got licenses or help with licenses to be part of the coaching staff down there. And there was, I think, maybe 24 B or A licensed coaches. There really is the nucleus of what you're talking about there, just for it to be pulled together. In terms of the group that are doing that pulling together, I know you've got people of the caliber of Con Murphy is the chairman, a former public official there with the county council. Dave Mahedy's well known to anyone in League of Ireland circles or UL circles over the last 20, 30, 40 years. Is that group strong enough to pull that together, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it is. Look, we're training LIT at the moment, and obviously with Dave Mahedy on board, there's strong links with the University of Limerick, and the ladies are training there. So, and that's something we are definitely looking at. You know, I've kind of made the initial engagement with LIT ourselves, you know, and initial discussions, should I say, and they're expanding as well, and they're expanding out to Kuna, and I'm sure they're looking to, you know, well, hopefully they'll be looking to partner with us in some way in the future as well, and possibly UL along with them. So it's definitely something we're looking into, and the board are looking into as for the future. And I think that the likes of that is the way to go. You know, it's the only way to go, actually.
Just bringing it forward, Tommy, to your own team and the group of lads you have coming into the first game here. Did you feel it was really important to add, I know you mentioned some of those Galway lads, some League of Ireland experience to that squad, so that when you come into this league, that you're competitive in every game and you can kind of find a way to win games and get points on the board?
Yeah, I think that's, you know, it's very important. There's no point in us going in with a team of kids or junior players. We no disrespect to the junior players and that, but you know yourself, there's a big step up, you know, from junior football and underage football to League of Ireland First Division. You played it long enough. It's a tough division. It's a tough league, and I think this year is going to be tougher than any year. You know, with the likes of the Cork, Galway, Shelburne. I can't remember any time 3 teams in particular had been full time. Not in my lifetime, I can't remember it anyway. I don't think it's ever happened. You know, so Cork, Galway, and Shells are definitely full time, and then you have like Bray last year, where they kick a ball away from winning the league. So then on top of that, you have you know, UCD are always strong. Athlone have strengthened. Harry Kenny's gone in to give Brian O'Sullivan a hand down in Wexford, as far as I know, and like they're going to be strong with the players that pulled out of Pats and the likes of Alex O'Hanlon with Shelburne and that. So yeah, it was very important for us to get those 3 or 4 lads. But even the lads we signed back from the junior clubs, I had to go with lads I knew, so a lot of them would have played with me before, even though they're young lads, you know, like Clyde O'Connell and Jack Lynch. Well, Jack was with Galway, but Sean McSweeney, you know, is a good player, and he, you know, those boys are well capable of competing in the First Division. It's just we're probably a bit behind now. You know, Charlie Fleming was a good signing out of Cork. He played in the Premier League last year, so we're a bit behind, obviously, from a fitness and even organisation point of view at the moment. But you know, like you said, I hope anyway, we're as competitive as we can be going into the first game. But it'll be tough for us this year. But I think we have lads that are, you know, they're all signed amateur, and there's no one playing. And you know yourself, Dean, the lads they're playing because they love it. They're not playing for the money anyway. That's for sure. You know, it's costing the money, so. Sometimes you're better off with lads like that, good people, you know, before good players. Sometimes, you know, they're good players as it is, but, you know, you can get these lads with massive reputations around the league, and you put a bunch of them together and they don't work. So that's what I'm hoping will happen, and we can get as many results as we can, you know.
Yeah.
In terms of metrics this year, Tommy, is it fair to say that the most important one to you is just survive the season, break even, make the club a force in the league in 5 to 10 years' time, rather than being competitive in every single game from day one?
Yeah, but look, you step out on the pitch, you want to be competitive. You know what I mean? Every game, you want to be competitive, no matter what. You know, you can't take that out of players, and I wouldn't want it myself. You know, I consider myself very competitive. You want to win every game, and you want to do your best in every game, no matter what. But yeah, it's not the be all and end all if we lose games, or you know we're anchored near the bottom. Even though, you know, I don't want to go into that negative mind frame or mindset, because that can seep in as well, and you're just feeling sorry for yourself. So we certainly won't go in like that. We know we're up against it, but you know that we're hoping that can galvanise us a bit as well, and see where it takes us. You know.
It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. As I think the work that's been done behind the scenes and off the pitch down in Limerick over the last 18 months or 24 months has been huge. Congratulations to you, the committee, and everyone involved down there. Thanks for giving us your time this evening, and the best of luck on Sunday against Bray and for the rest of the season.
Thanks lads. Best of luck. Cheers, Dean. Bye.
Okay, next up on the podcast, we speak to Tom Murphy, the Wexford FC goalkeeper. And we'd like to bring in Tom now. How you doing, Tom?
How are you, lads?
Very
Great.
well. How's things?
Not too bad.
How's all down in Wexford, Tom? I suppose you've been the safest pair of hands down there for the last little while. You're looking forward to the new season?
Yeah, no, we've had a good pre-season. We kind of started early January and went full into it, and we've just finished up there. We played Friday night our last pre-season game, so we had kind of a tough run of pre-season games with who we played, but definitely we feel that we're ready. And again, we've brought in more new signings, especially off the back of last year, so it'll be hopefully interesting to see how we get on against Cabinteely Friday night at home.
Yeah, like you said there, you've brought in a number of good players, and I think even last year Wexford surprised people with some of the players they brought in, and this year again the same, brought in a number of good players. Obviously, one player that's come in is Jimmy Corker, in the same position as yourself. Like, how do you find the competition and the battle for places there, specifically with yourself, but throughout the team for a jersey on a match day?
Yeah, it's good. I think it's one of them ones where you can look at it two ways. You can either look at it and some players might feel it as a threat, or then you look at it and it'll probably keep you at the top of your game more so than anything. I think it's good that you kind of have competition, because I think you can kind of fall into it if you're comfortable and you know you're playing. You can kind of fall into bad habits and you kind of expect to be playing. Whereas when you have competition there, and especially of a good quality, it's keeping you on your toes. It's making sure that you're spot on in every session. I think we've kind of seen that throughout the whole of pre-season with kind of all the positions in the team. It's definitely a difference on last year. Kind of last year, you kind of have a sense of who is going to be in the starting 11, where it's very open now at the minute, and we've kind of tried new things in pre-season, different formations, different players in different positions, and a lot of players have put a stake in a claim for the starting 11 come Friday night now.
Yeah, I think Tommy Barrett let the cat out of the bag there, but Harry Kenny been part of the setup down in Wexford. What's Harry's role been through pre-season?
Yeah, so Harry came in with us for a bit at the end of last season, as well as the assistant manager to Brian. He's lucky enough, we've got him back again this year as assistant manager again. And I think it's great to have him down. He has that experience because we are a relatively young team. Like, we do have a few older players in the squad, but a lot of us are maybe our second year at first team level, or some players are only just coming out of 19s football. So having Harry then as well, then there to guide you, who knows the league, because especially the first division, it's a very hard league, probably harder to get out of than the first or the Premier Division. So to have that experience and Harry that kind of knows the game and knows the players and kind of knows the managers of each teams to bring in alongside Brian has been great to get in, and especially the kind of the players that Harry's been able to attract into the club as well has been great.
A lot of the talk around the league is going to be of kind of Shells, Galway, Cork City dropping down. Is there any expectations within your own dressing room? Like, do you see that playoff spot as being viable or competing high up the table? Like, what is the expectation within the dressing room for that group of players?
I think definitely we want to be competing in every game anyway. I think we found last year what kind of happened is we kind of set expectations at the start of the season, and then obviously COVID hit and we lost a lot of players throughout the season. Probably the squad that we started the season with was far from the squad that we finished it with. So, and there was games kind of last year where we probably weren't as competitive as we should have been. So we definitely be looking to tighten up on that and definitely being competitive in each game. We've been lucky enough, we've actually got to test ourselves against the likes of Galway and Shells in pre-season. So we kind of know where we're in and around with them kind of teams. So we'll definitely be looking at being competitive and definitely climbing up a few places. We've kind of seen where we have finished the last few years around the bottom. So we'll definitely be looking at climbing up that table. But as you say, it's going to be a very strong league and a tough league this year with the likes of Shells and Cork and Galway. And then you obviously have Bray and you have Athlone who strengthened as well. So it's going to be a tough league, but hopefully we will be competing and we will be up and in around the upper half of the table anyway.
On a personal level, of course, we've talked about that competition for the jersey. You're out in first home game on Friday night in the league. Do you have any indication as we speak now, a week out, maybe who's going to be filling that jersey? Will you get the nod? Will Jimmy Corcoran get the nod? He's come in obviously from Dundalk in the off season. What can you tell us about that?
There's none at all, if I'm honest. It's literally they're keeping their cards kind of very close to their chest for everybody, really. Every game we've kind of played, and this going for the whole team, everybody's kind of split minutes and everybody's played similar enough minutes. And like I say, we've changed formations up throughout the pre-season, so we actually haven't really finalized a formation that we're going to go to. And I suppose come Friday night, whatever formation they pick, they'll pick the best players that are suited to that to hopefully get the 3 points on Friday night. So I suppose it'll just be hopefully a good week of training, and then we'll see come Friday night.
Yeah, it's Cabinteely up first, and they've actually lost a lot of players. And I know from my time with Devo, he kind of scrambles lads together and gets a team together somehow. Is it difficult for you to approach that game or prepare for that game, considering the team that you played against last season probably completely different to the Cabinteely team you'll play against this year?
I think we'll probably still approach it kind of the same, and I suppose it's kind of one of them ones where when it's the first few games of the season, you kind of focus more on yourself than the opposition, because not a lot of teams kind of show their cards too much in pre-season. And I think we even see that when you look at the results in the Premier Division this weekend. Like, there was a good few shocks on the card. Like, you seen, like, a lot of people would have wrote yous off this weekend dealing with Longford, and he's really dominated Derry. So there you go. And I think we'll probably see the same probably this week or coming in the first division. I think it's one of them ones where the Cabo are always a team, as you say. They will lose players, but they'll strengthen. And I think what will be beneficial for them this season is bringing in Collie O'Neill there. Collie's been a great manager. He would have been the first manager I kind of dealt with when I came back from England at UCD. And him coming in with Devo there will definitely benefit Cabo in the long term anyway.
Yeah, obviously there's a huge development in the number of quality players coming out of the underage leagues, but also quality coaches getting real National League experience at various levels now. How much has that raised the bar in that first division? Because we're talking about full-time teams, we're talking about professional players, we're talking about, like you're saying, you were in the lower reaches of that division last year, but you're stronger again, and everyone around you has strengthened as well. Is that a factor maybe in terms of how those squads have improved over the last probably season or two in particular?
Yeah, I think what's going to benefit even more this year is the coverage that it'll get with League of Ireland TV. I think that's going to be massive for the league this year, because I think even you look into the likes of the under-21 squads and under-19 squads and squads like that, where we are seeing more League of Ireland players coming into it. And take, for instance, there you had Brian Maher, that's at Bray's in the first division, and he's up in the 21 squad. So there you go. That just says the strength of the first division, that you have international players playing in the league. And I definitely think, I feel it's more beneficial, and it's probably better for players' development probably to stay at home probably a bit longer, come home and play in the league rather than play 23s or reserve team football in England, because it's more beneficial and it's more realistic, because you're playing for points, and especially at a younger age, you're seeing players probably developing quicker. And whereas if they're probably in England, they wouldn't get the chances that they're getting in the league. Like, you will have to take a look at some of the boys in the Premier Division, like you have Dawson Devoy, Andy Lyons, You have Aaron Bulger at Longford, Dervin. All of them players are under 21 and they have at least 20, 30 appearances under their belt at first team level. And like that, coming into the league now, you're starting to see younger coaches then as well. And better styles of football. Like you take, for instance, like last year would have been my first proper senior year, and you had what I seen, like you're dealing with, say, Longford are playing out from the back, you're dealing with Bray playing out from the back, Drogheda playing out from the back. It's not just kind of people look then at the first division and say, oh, it's just long ball, stuff like that, where there is teams that are trying to play football in the right way. And it's teams are finding the balance now of mixing young players with the more experienced players as well, and that's only benefiting the league. And it's like you see last year, it's like Bray were literally a kick of the ball away from getting up, and then they don't even get up through the playoffs. And then you had, say, ourselves dealing with Longford, you kind of got in there through the playoffs, and everybody would have probably wouldn't have pitches to go up. So it just kind of shows you the strength of the league, and it's only going from strength to strength again this year.
Never mind going up. They're top of the Premier Division at the moment as well. You touched on the LOITV, and we haven't got the concrete details of that yet. I know a price has come out, €79, I think, is the price for the season. It's great value for anyone who follows the league. Even if it's just one team in the league you're interested in, €79 still a steal, really, to see all the games. It also has all the women's games for free, but of course, neither of you will be bothered about that, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that now. There'll be a bit of interest there. Anyway, I think that's what myself and Dean have in common. Both of our girlfriends or partners are playing with Peamount, so
yeah, we'll be logging on to the Peamount streams.
Yeah.
So you're the male equivalent of the Wags when Peamount are winning cups and leagues. Your partners have put it up to you last season. You've no pressure at all.
That's the thing. The trophy cabinets are full here with our partners. We need to chip in a little bit, don't we, Tom?
We're lacking a few medals. If we even come together, maybe we might get near enough what they get in a season.
Exactly.
Well, listen, Tom, we're going to let you and the other half of the Goalkeepers Union go. The very best of luck to you this season. Best luck on Friday night as well against Cabinteely. And I suppose that personal clash of the intrigue of the week and the excitement. I hope it doesn't get too much in terms of who'll be wearing that jersey on the pitch on Friday night. I know it's interesting from an outsider's point of view. I'm sure it's absolutely nerve-wracking from your own personal point of view. But the very best of luck for the season ahead.
Thanks very much.
All the best, Tom.
Cheers, Ian.
Now, Dean, we're going to take a look at one of your former clubs, Bray Wanderers. They are in the first division this year, and they came mightily close to snatching that league title last year. Of course, you upset the apple cart, not directly against them, but by winning the playoffs last year, and you've consigned them to another year. One person who might have a bone to pick with you about that is their striker, Gary Shaw, and he joins us now. Gary, you're very welcome to the programme.
How's it going, lads? Thanks for having me.
There you go.
Very welcome. Do you have anything you want to say to Dean? Maybe smack across the back of the head for...
No, look, they're jamming up and up there as it is. So look, we'll let them have their moment. So hopefully we can swap positions this time next year. We can have a chat again, and we might be in different positions. So we'll see. But look, delighted that Longford got a former club. Obviously, delighted that they got the win. They're off to a good start. But obviously, it's a long season ahead. So we'll see how it goes.
You say former club. There's a fairly lengthy list there. Not that lengthy, but there's a number of clubs in the league. I suppose you've spent time at Pats, Rovers, Longford, as you mentioned. Now you're back with Bray. It's, I think, your second or third season back with them in your second spell. How has it been going for you so far?
Yeah, as I said, it's my second spell with Bray. I've gone full circle now. Started off in 2010 with Dino. So look, it's you mentioned there in the intro that we came bitterly close to winning the league. Still hurts a bit when you think back of, what we had it in our hands with 2 games to go, and we kind of, I suppose, no easy way to put it, we threw it away against Galway, and then took completely out of our hands. And look, fair play to Drogheda. They earned their place at the top, and they're up in the Premier now, and we have to just battle on again this season.
Yeah, guys, just after the initial lockdown and the stoppage of the league last year, I thought you were the best team in the league coming back from that lockdown, and certainly hit the ground running. Do you think you're still equipped to be one of the better teams in the league this year, with obviously the introduction of Shell's full-time team, Galway going full-time, another big name in Cork City there? Do you still see yourselves as being equipped to challenge for the top spot?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, look, I suppose in a way as a player behind the scenes, you kind of get worried and you see the players that have left the club before kind of new ones have come in. So you're kind of saying, right, I hope the manager gets replacements for these ASAP, because you could see the power that Shells were having in the transfer market over Christmas, and they were kind of just buying every player that was available nearly. And we were just hoping that we'd get some players in. And I think the manager's done really well in his recruitment. We've had a couple of pre-season games and they've gone really, really well, and players have set in nicely. It's such a competitive first division. Like, I think it's the most competitive it's ever been in a long time. Like with the clubs you mentioned, big clubs, some clubs going full time, big names in there. Some players they've played Premier Division football their whole life, but they've stayed and they're like the likes of Cork. They have players there that are sticking with them. So even the players that are huge experience. And I said it previously to someone that that what happened to us last year is going to stand to us. A lot of players there, they felt that disappointment, that the frustration that we got so close but yet so far. So I think that year under our belt is really going to stand to us, along with the players that have come in. I think we will definitely be thereabouts.
We had Conor Hoey on the show last week, chairman of Drogheda United, and he has tipped yourselves to be there at the top of the table come the end of the season. He said that Brayer has tipped for the league, and Brandon Cavan is going to be, by a distance, was his words, player of the season. From what you've seen in pre-season, would you echo that?
Yeah, look, Brandon has bags of potential. He was, obviously involved with Sean McGrovers too last year, and he stood out by a mile with them and got a lot of goals for them. He just, was in a team that, was he going to see first team action this season? Probably not, with the players they have. So he's looking, in fairness to him, he's made the decision to come to Bray. I'm sure he had his pick of the teams in the first division of where he was going to go on loan to. And he's come to us. I'm hoping, because he sees the potential that we have to go and win it. And what he's done in pre-season so far, he's done exactly what he came to do. He's got on the ball, scored goals, assists. He's changed games for us in pre-season just by his ability. It really is something special, and he has a huge future in the game. But he needs to be playing. You need to be playing games at his age, and he's going to do that this season. And I really think he's going to be a massive, massive part. And like you said there, he's absolutely been a shout with Player of the Year, but he has to perform on the pitch to do that. So if he can do that on a consistent basis, he'll definitely be in contention.
Just your own role in the team, Gary. You've obviously been a goal scorer everywhere you've been. I think you got 3 against us last year as well, was it?
Ah, yeah, just a 3.
Just a 3, yeah. What do you have any personal expectations or goals, or do you do that still, kind of setting down things for yourself? As a goal scorer, as a striker,
like obviously, my role in the team, when I was first with Bray, I was just a young kid coming in, just trying to get into the league and that kind of stuff. But obviously, this time around, I'll be a more experienced player. This is my 12th season, 11th season in the league, 11th or 12th season in the league. So obviously that's change of 250 or so appearances. So I'm trying to bring that experience to the younger lads, doing what I can to help them. But on a personal level, absolutely just setting goals myself. And doing what I can for the team on and off the pitch, and obviously trying to perform, score goals. I always see myself as a very honest player, work ethic and that kind of stuff, and getting the best out of the lads around me. And I'll do that till the day my legs won't let me. And if I can do that, I think we'll have a great chance. I think from the spine of the team, Aaron Barry at the back, right through Conor Clifford in midfield, myself up top. I think that experience there will really drive us on this year, and hopefully we can be lifting a league title at the end of it.
Obviously, your game this weekend has been moved to Sunday afternoon because of Brian Maher's call up for the under-21s. How important is it to have that kind of pathway visible to the young lads coming through at Bray, to see international players been happy to be at the Carlisle grounds?
Yeah, it's so important for every club, and you have to have that. You have to give that kid coming through the vision of where you can get to. You have to present it in front of them and say, if you work hard, or if you do X, Y, and Z, that's where you can get to. And Brian, he's a talented kid. He's done a stint at Pats. He wasn't going to get in. He had Brendan Clark in front of him. It was going to be difficult. Brian came to us then last season, and I really think Brian was our player of the year. He saved us on so many occasions. Literally, he deserves everything he gets out of the game because he put so much work into it as well. But younger players have to have that hunger and desire as well. It can't just be told about this pathway and this is what happens, and it doesn't just happen. You have to make it happen. And Bray is a club where we do have a lot of young lads coming up to train, and there's players there that they can look up to. But it's ultimately up to them and to go and want and have that desire and passion to reach the potential that they might have.
I know Gary Cronin obviously worked with him at Longford and played with him at Bray. Very good coach, very detailed. How do you prepare for a team like Treaty in the first game of the season? Brand new club.
It's a strange one. Like it is, a brand new club. You don't know what they're going to be about. A couple of their players. I know Joel trained from Rovers and that kind of stuff. But just as a club, and then obviously you don't have fans there and that kind of stuff. So it's a strange one. It really is. It's you're just going to go in blind. Look, we'll obviously watch a couple of their pre-season games, or we'll have games clipped this week. We'll see their set pieces and that kind of stuff. But you really can't focus too much on the opposition, especially like the likes of us that we want to go and take the game to them, and we just have to go and impose ourselves. But yeah, look, there will be surprises thrown in because we won't know everything about them and what style they're going to have, the players, the personnel. That we don't have a base to work off. We don't have anything to work off last season, that kind of stuff, what they might do. So it really is up to us to kind of just impose ourselves that, they're nearly fearing us and we're not fearing them, that kind of way. You have to have that mentality going into it because it is really, they can do all the prep they want on us because they can watch games last season, whatever, and the individual players. But look, it will be a bit different than your normal prep for the coaching staff. But like I said, we want to go and just take the game to them and not have they're coming to Bray, so we need to make sure that we're dominant at home this season. That's going to be a big thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I suppose, and this question is to both of you really, because you both played in that season 10 or 11, 12 years ago. What's the big difference in the league now from now to then when you compare back, when you think back to that season, in terms of how you prepare, how you focus, the information that's available, like you've just been talking about?
Well, from my point of view, like just the amount of detail that goes into the prep now is unbelievable. Like the clips, like this software you have, like I'm not sure what you use, like we use Huddle, and the kind of software and the clips you get from it like are unbelievable. And just even for yourself, getting your own clips of watching how you did in the game and your touches and all that kind of stuff, and realizing what you actually did, or the run you actually made, or the pass you should have made, or whatever it might be. We have Pat Devlin, and I don't know if he could even turn on a computer if you gave him one. You know what I mean? I'm sure that he wouldn't be a fan of all that kind of stuff. But look, the game is always evolving and it's moving on, and that's why it's so technical now as well. It was really, it was 10 or 11 years ago. It was hard hitting, big, strong, like the physical side of the game was really. But you see the younger lads coming through, and you do have a lot of young lads coming back from England where the game has just gotten so much more technical. So the technical side of the game has gotten way more important, and yeah, it's definitely evolved a lot since we last played, or when we last played together in 2010.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you touched on it there. I'd say the same thing. Like we finish a game and within a couple of hours you have the game to rewatch, or you get a statistical analysis of the game, and statistics on duels won and passes and shots on target, like all this sort of stuff coming in. Whereas as Gary mentioned, kind of 10, 11 years ago, I mean, I don't know if we'd done any kind of recap on games, did we, Gary, back then? It was just
I don't think we did at all. I don't remember watching a video or anything like that on Teams. And then you have like the likes of the nutrition side of things. Like that's just driven into you every single day, and how important it is. And it's like now you understand really. You look back and kind of saying, Jesus, what was I doing back then? Like, prepping for games and that kind of stuff. Like it's crazy to think. But that's just the way it was, and we didn't know any different then. Like it's just the way the game has changed, and the more educated people get, and backroom teams then you had your kind of your manager, your assistant manager, and maybe a coach, and then you had the kit man or whatever. But some teams have, opposition analysts, they have nutritionists, strength and conditioning coach, all these separate individual roles that they all have an important part to play, but it's all brings it together as one, and that's how detailed it's become. And it's fine margins. All of these play a part in getting you to your end goal.
I think the biggest one for me, I don't know about you, Gary, is recovery now. Like, I wouldn't have done a whole lot. I actually remember when I was at Bray, I would have went to work the next day because I would have worked Saturdays and Sundays. So, now if I don't do recovery, I probably can't train for half the week. Building up to the next game, like, you need to get into ice baths or the sea or whatever it is, foam rolling stuff, like stuff that wasn't really around. Obviously the sea and all, you could do that stuff back in when we started, but the likes of foam rolling or massage guns and things like that, which are really prominent now, like, they just weren't around, and it wasn't part of the weekly kind of agenda.
Yeah, as much as, like, they say, like, clubs are part-time, that, like, the amount of things we have to do behind the scenes in terms of the likes of recovery, nutrition, all that kind of stuff, it's really, it takes over your life. Like, when you're a League of Ireland footballer, no matter what club you're at, if you're taking it serious and taking it the way you should be taking it, you're full time, and I don't care what anyone says, you really are.
Absolutely.
You might just have to do a few hours in a job to pay the bills at the end of the week.
That's it.
But everything revolves around being available for training and matches 100%. And I'm not even involved in it that closely, and you can see it from the outside looking in. Gary, you talked about fine margins, and I suppose we talked at the outset about how Drogheda had just pipped you for that league, and then Longford obviously went up through the playoffs. How much inspiration do you take from their opening weekend in terms of how they got on against teams, maybe not so much in Drogheda's case, but definitely in Longford's, teams that would have been fancy to beat them, going up, and now the top two teams in the division, in the Premier Division, were in your division last year, and you're going for their spot, I suppose. Do you take anything from that, or is it really just a freak weekend? You can't read too much into one weekend's action.
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that. Look, both clubs have recruited well. They've brought in some very good players. It's like I said, it's going to be a long season, and they'll need everyone. You do need the depth of the squad, especially, given the fact it's going to be all going well. It's going to be a full season this term. Obviously last year was quite short, and it was kind of a sprint finish from the start. There was never really that kind of long slog or whatever it was. But it's when you get off to a good start, it's always a good sign. You want to get off to a good start no matter what club you are. You see the likes of Rovers and Dundalk, they wanted to go out there and get their 3 points, get their season going, and try and get the title. But it doesn't happen like that all the time. And then you look at Longford and Drogheda, they both come up and they both get 3 points on the board, and that's just the way it works. So look, it's great for them, but it's all about, I'm sure Dino will agree with me, he'll say, look, that's parked now. They're already focusing on their next game, and that's all that matters now. That's it. But I'm not sure who they're playing, but it's the next game, and that's the way you just look at it. It's the next game. I know it's a cliche thing to say, but that's just it. You just tick the game off week by week, and if you can just keep getting your couple of points here and there, and you're kind of forgetting about looking to people behind you, you're kind of looking at teams ahead of you, and if you can start having that in your head towards the end of a season, you're doing well.
Absolutely. Listen, thanks very much for joining us, Gary, and the very best of luck on Sunday afternoon as you welcome Treaty United to League of Ireland football. I'm sure it'll be a nice welcome to the seaside for the Treaty side. I'm sure you'll be looking to give them a unhappy run back down the N7 to Limerick, and the very best of luck to you and to Bray as you hunt that title that just evaded you last season.
Appreciate it, lads. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
And that is our show for this week. I suppose before we go, we better run through the fixtures of the weekend, Dean, and we'll run down through them quickly because we are running out of time. Friday evening, we're looking at Dundalk versus Finn Harps. Hard to look past a Dundalk victory in this one, although you never know what could happen in this division anymore.
Yeah, difficult to see past Dundalk winning. Obviously, they need to win, having drawn their first game, but Harps will be coming in on a high, and it'll be a difficult game. They won't make it easy for Dundalk. So, early in the season can go either way, but I think just about Dundalk.
Of course, the other teams that need a victory now after the weekend's results: Waterford, they host Sligo Rovers. Victors over, or they drew with Dundalk at the weekend. To erase that goal from my mind. Waterford, Sligo on Friday evening as well.
Yeah, obviously Waterford were just pipped at the end by Drogheda, so they need to get points on the board. And Sligo maybe feeling a little hard done by, like you said, could have had 3 points on the board. But, in this league, especially with a bit of travel involved, Sligo going down to Waterford, you never know. And yeah, it could go either way, but I think that might be a draw between the two.
Yeah, I fancy Sligo. Actually, I just think Sligo impressed me at the weekend. I just thought they did really, really well. You're in action on Saturday afternoon, 4 p.m. in Dalymount. You're playing Bows. They'll be hurting after their visit to Ballybuffet.
Yeah, absolutely. Expect a big reaction from Bows, and I'm sure Keith and Trevor will be working all week on them. From our own point of view, again, don't want to recycle the cliches, but one game at a time. So we're just rolling into Bows now. So we need to be competitive. We need to put it up to them, same way we did with Derry, and let's see how we do in the end.
Pats and Drogheda. Pats were impressive against Shamrock Rovers. Drogheda very, very impressive against Waterford on Friday. They face off in the final Premier Division game of the weekend. Obviously, the Derry game has been pushed back. But in terms of this weekend, Pats and Drogheda, how do you see this one faring for both sides?
Yeah, I think this will be highly competitive. Pats were very, very fit, got around the pitch against Shamrock Rovers, very combative at times. And Drogheda is exactly the same under Tim Clancy, so that could be a back and forth game. I think Pats might just shade it, but we'll see, because I know Tim will definitely have Drogheda up for it. So could go either way again, like we say with all the games, because it's just so competitive and so early on in the season. It's hard to kind of predict form or how it'll fall out. But if you're making me pick, I'm going to shade it to Pats.
I wasn't going to make you pick any of them because obviously you're in this season, but if you want to suggest teams, I'm quite happy to let you go on with that. Of course, Shamrock Rovers are due to play Derry as well next weekend. That's been postponed because of international call-ups. In terms of the First Division, 5 games taking place Friday evening for 4 of them, with that Bray and Treaty United game, as we mentioned in the interview with both Tommy and Gary, taking place on Sunday afternoon. We'll start on Friday night, Cork City versus Cove Ramblers. What a start to the season for both clubs. A nice local Cork league derby. It's been a while.
Yeah, that's a fantastic game to start with. And again, we're disappointed and missing out on fans, because I'm sure that would be a highly attended game. But Cork will want to get off to a good start. They want to lay down a marker, but I wouldn't underestimate Stuart Ashen and the lads down in Cove. They're always really competitive. They always work really, really hard. And I think the biggest thing for them is they always have First Division experienced players, so knowing how to play in that division, whereas Cork City maybe don't, coming down from a long spell in the Premier Division. So interesting game, that one there, and the battle at Cork for the bragging rights down in Cork.
Yeah, and 2 of the teams that have dominated the early predictions, at least, Galway United and Shells, both full-time. They face off in Eamon DC Park on Friday evening as well. That's going to be a humdinger. Really set out a kind of first bragging rights for both teams, but probably end up in a draw with both teams not really wanting to show their full hand.
Yeah, like you said, it could end up shaking out to be a draw where both teams are reasonably happy to kind of have a stalemate between themselves and then do their business elsewhere. But John Caulfield done a really good job with Galway at the end of last season, gone full time this year, recruited a lot of players. Shells, as we know, have a big budget, have a big plan in place for their future. So that'll be a highly competitive game, and again, that would be a really, really good one for anyone that's tuning in on the stream.
Yeah, 2 teams that have strengthened pretty well over the close season. UCD, they host Athlone Town. Athlone have signed some really promising players. I really like what they're doing down there. Of course, we spoke to Adrian Carberry a couple of weeks ago, but UCD have strengthened as well. Sam Todd's arrived in from Finn Harps. They've got a really good backbone of a team there from last season, and we're kind of nearly on that up cycle. UCD seem to come good every 3 or 4 years, and this could be a kind of a year for UCD just to get in under the radar a little bit. What's your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, again, never write off UCD, because they always have good football players. And I think a couple of years ago we all thought, they wouldn't be involved, and they ended up winning the league with a core group of very good players that you see now have gone to other clubs. And this core group again could be the same. They've got a number of very, very good players. And as for Athlone, probably just about whether they can gel all the new signings in and get the right balance and the right fit early on. And we've mentioned it throughout with all the other games. It's so early on. First game for the First Division, but so early on in the League of Ireland season that, managers maybe not even sure our players up to full fitness? Is it the right tactics? Is this the shape they're going to go with? So if Athlone can nail that down, they could definitely go there and cause a little bit of an upset in the first game. But I'm sure they've got goals for being competitive this season. So be a good one to get for Athlone.
Yeah, of course, the game we talked to Tom Murphy about, Wexford and Cabinteely, that's going to be an interesting game. Cabinteely seem to have kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit in terms of some of the experienced talent. They have kept some of the names, like Kieran Marty Waters is there this year, and there's a couple of other names that with plenty of experience, but they seem to have they're not going to be in the title shake-up, I think is fair to say, from what they were over the last couple of seasons. Wexford, they've strengthened, they've brought in a couple of signings too. Where do you see this one going? Will Cabo still have enough to see out a challenge from Wexford?
Well, the one thing I'd never do is write off Pat Devlin, because anytime you do, they just come up with they find a Rob Manley, or they find someone from somewhere that ends up being really, really good for them. We played them twice in pre-season actually, and they've got a lot of players, and Pat usually does that. He brings in a lot of selection players for selection. So again, they'll look to find something. They've got Kevin Knight, they've got Kieran Marty Waters, so they've still got some decent lads who've played first division football, and they hope to find a handful of others that can come in. And as we said when we talked to Tom, Wexford have strengthened. They're going to be more competitive. It's actually a big game for both of them, I think, because it could set down a marker for how their seasons kind of pan out. I think if Wexford are really looking at pushing on, they'll want to win at home to Cabinteely, and if Cabinteely can again be underdogs that can crash into the playoff party, they probably feel they need to be Wexford. So that would be highly competitive, that one.
Absolutely. In the final game in your own backyard, Bray Wanderers and Treaty, that we've spoken about on the show. Two of our guests featuring in that, Tommy for Treaty in their first ever senior competitive match, men's match, and Bray as they bid to go one better than last season. Mismatch in some respects in terms of maybe the resources available to both managers in this game. Can you see the result being flipped on its head from that?
Yeah, well, I think, know Tommy a little bit, and know the way his teams play. He's actually got a core group of good League of Ireland players there, and a couple of, junior players that he believes in. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if they come and make it really difficult for Bray. But I actually really like Gary Cronin, and I like what they done last year. I thought they were the best of the teams in the league after the restart. So I would expect, and like what Gary said, they want to win their home games, and they want to win against kind of everybody to be the team that's bringing the game to everybody. So probably would expect Bray to edge this one in the first game of the season. But as far as the rest of the year goes, I wouldn't dismiss Tommy Barrett and the lads at Treaty.
Absolutely. I think if they perform as well as his Limerick FC sides did in the 2 seasons he was there with no resources also, I think they'll surprise a few teams this year, and they'll definitely, I think we got a very Ollie Horgan-esque interview from Tommy earlier. I don't think they're going to be where maybe people are pitching them to be. I think they're going to be reasonably competitive in that division. Maybe not challenging for the title, but I think an outside bet for that playoff spot, maybe 4th or 5th place, isn't beyond their capabilities this season. Listen, Dean, we've run out of time. Thank you so much, as always, for that. It's great to have the captain, as I said, of the team on the top of the league. It's not going to happen too often for Longford, so we want to make a bit of celebration about it when it does happen. Well done at the weekend. The best of luck this week, and I'm sure we'll be chatting to you again in a couple of weeks on the show.
Thank you.